All right, can we open up James 5? It's about 19 verses. We're going to read all of them. Who wants to start? James 5, who wants to start? Let's go.
Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries that you are coming upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver are corroded, and the corrosion will be witness against you, and you will eat your flesh like fire. You have heaped up the treasure in the last day, indeed, the wages of the laborers who mowed your field, which you kept back by your fraud, crying out and cried out, the reapers have reached the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. You have lived on the earth in pleasure and luxury. You have fattened your heart as in the day of slaughter. You have condemned, you have murdered the just. He does not resist you.
Who wants to continue? Let's do like 7 each. Mina?
Therefore be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and latter rain. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brethren, lest you be condemned. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. My brethren, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord as an example of suffering and patience. Indeed, we count on blessed to endure. You have heard of the perseverance of Job and seen the evidence and good that the Lord is very compassionate and merciful. But above all, my brethren, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or with any other oath. But let your yes be yes and your no, no, lest you fall into judgment. Is anyone among you suffering? Let him pray. Is anyone cheerful? Let him sing songs. Is anyone among you sick? Let him call the elders of the church and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord.
All right, I want to focus on from 7 to about 12. So we're reading James 5, and we're on verse 7. It says, Therefore be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and latter rain. You also be patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brethren, lest you be condemned. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. My brethren, take the prophets and who spoke in the name of the Lord as an example of suffering and patience. Indeed, we count them blessed who endure. You have heard of the perseverance of Job and seen the end intended by the Lord, that the Lord is very compassionate and merciful. Okay. So, prior to this, there's James is actually one of my favorite books. His first chapter is about there's a lot of perseverance, right? Blessed are those who are tempted and kind of endure that temptation. That they'll be, and those who persevere, because they will receive the reward in heaven. In the last chapter before 5 and 4, it talks a lot about the rich, right? How the rich who are kind of greedy, who are self-absorbed, who are they don't necessarily care about their fellow man, women, will be basically condemned by the Lord, right? And then we hear here, right? And that's why in 1 to 6, it's basically a continuation of 4, when he's basically saying, "Come now, you rich, for your miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten." And the whole point of this passage is really to discuss where your heart should be and really establishing yourself outside of necessarily just focusing on the riches of the world and really focusing on eternal, right? What's actually eternal, right? When we get to 7, and I start with 7 because we say, "Therefore be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord." And patience is very, very key if you really want to be a Christian. Patience is very key if you really want to be a Christian. Why do I say that? I say that Why do I say that? That's a good question. You tell me. Why do I say patience is very key in Christianity? If you want to be a real Christian, why is patience so key? There's one obvious answer, and then there's one, deeper answer that we can talk about. Why is patience key?
Because everyone is great to God.
Okay, good. What else? What else? Why is patience so key in Christianity? Yeah.
And those things that we ask for won't happen instantly. It will take time.
Right. The one thing we're running this race for, essentially, we really need to be patient about. Right? Does that make sense? What are we running this race for?
Salvation.
Salvation. To be with God here and ultimately for eternity. Right? So the one thing that we're running this race for, the one thing that He came and died for, we're here because He saved us and we want to be there with Him for eternity. Right? So that requires patience. That requires a lot of patience. But on a day-to-day basis, patience is also very key. Because if you're not patient, what do you end up doing? What do you end up doing if you're not patient?
Rash decisions.
You make rash decisions. It ends up being about the day-to-day successes, the day-to-day fleeting, fleeting rewards. That's what it ends up being about if we're not patient. And as I was thinking about this discussion this week, I thought a lot about what we talked about in January on the retreat. We talked about needing God and desiring God. But I personally feel in today's day and age, it's ultimately impossible to need and desire God without patience. Why? Why? Because ultimately, throughout your day, there are instances throughout the day where you can choose God or you can choose to fill God with something else. To fill the void with something else. And if you're not patient, you'll end up wanting to fill whatever that thing is that presents itself in that day with something else. Does that make sense? You guys are like, I don't even know what something else is. What are you talking about? What do you think I'm talking about? Yeah.
You're reading it, so.
Okay. Throughout the day, there are many instances. You always hear, keep God in your day. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner. Right? We hear, how do we keep God throughout our day? And there are moments throughout the day where you can choose to plug God in, or you can tune Him out. That makes sense? You can choose to plug God in, or you can tune Him out with anything else. What's anything else? Music, Instagram, text message, phone, any form of communication with another human being. Those are all instances, moments to choose God. Yet what do? Ultimately, we choose something else. Why? Because that's quicker. That's easier. That's fun. That's more exciting. That's more enticing. That's more rewarding at the time. So when James in chapter 5, he says, where did it go? Therefore be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruits of the earth, waiting patiently for it until he receives the early ladder. And then he talks about the prophets who endure, who we praise, who we glorify. All these people that we revere, we talk about the fathers, right? We talk about the prophets. All of them were patient. They endured for the Lord. And nobody's telling you, go profess your love for Christ in front of Caesar and face condemnation. No, we're just talking about being patient in the moment and choosing Christ in that moment over choosing to fill that void. I want to to get a little bit more practical. Yes.
So you mentioned patience, and it's actually interesting because in the high school meeting we were talking about the fruit of the spirit, and one of which was patience.
Yeah.
And it was brought up that so they did this study called the marshmallow study. Was that they put a marshmallow in front of a little kid, and they said if you have the choice to either eat the marshmallow now or be patient, wait 15 minutes, and we'll give you another marshmallow. And they actually followed those kids long term, and they found that the kids that were patient and waited for the second marshmallow actually ended up scoring more than 200 points higher on their SATs. So it just shows that how patience it is not just something you do or something that's needed for a little bit, but it actually it's throughout your whole. It basically represents your whole your character and
right.
Who you are.
Right. That's actually really fascinating, and I think you can find so many examples. That is a very interesting example, but there are so many examples to all of us where if we didn't make us, there's probably a moment where you can think, if I didn't make that choice right there to receive instant gratification, I would have been in line to receive something so much better. Right? And you know how we always talk about God has something in store for you. God has something better in store for you. Right? Outside of just salvation. Right? We know this. We know heaven's there. It's whenever our time comes, God willing, we're there. That requires patience. But to receive the best for you, that is patience. Right? That is patience. That is one-on-one communication with God, accepting His plan, and ultimately deciding that I'm going to wait until He delivers what is best. Right? But somebody was like, yeah, but what about free will? What about free will? Like, free will, so do you have to choose what's best? Do you have to choose what's best if, we have free will? No, you never have to choose it, right? But when you're on this path, that best thing is over here, and you're going this way. You can consistently take these diversions, right? And consistently not choose the best thing, but the best thing is there, and it's waiting for you, right? And it's on you to wait, be in communication with God to ultimately accept that best thing or not. So that is ultimately why I say this Christianity requires a lot of patience. But it's very hard, right? It's very, very hard, especially now, today. I think this is the biggest struggle we have as a people, as a church, as whatever. Everything needs to be instant. We need instant gratification consistently in everything we do. We need it in the service. I always look for instant gratification in service, right? We need to see, success with the service. We need to see people. We need to see about, and thank God for Abuna, because Abuna is consistently preaching, listen, yes, we need to see, success, but we also need God to nurture, right? God will nurture as long as we're working. God will nurture as long as we're working, right? So even in the service, we come to a place where it's like, man, I need to see more, or we're not doing anything, or we're not, but things are happening. We need to let God work, right? Weird enough, that wasn't even my topic today. But, we're halfway through, and we said what we said. But I want to get back to why we got into patience is, what is substituting these things that don't allow us to be patient? There's something called idols, right? Something called idols. We each have these consistent idols in our life, which we are choosing over Christ because we are not patient. Consistent idols on the left that we're choosing over Christ because we're not patient. I want to pull up Exodus 32, if we can. Can we pull up Exodus 32? So, right now the Israelites are in the wilderness, and Moses is up on the mountain. He just received the 10 Commandments. Mind you, prior to, in 31, it says Moses received the 10 Commandments. And now, we read in 32, now when the people saw that Moses delayed coming down from the mountain, the people gathered to Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us gods that shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Mind you, at this moment, Moses had the 10 Commandments. And they're saying, we don't actually know where Moses is, we don't know what happened, we don't know what became of him. Right? So that's what we said. We're on the road. God has that good plan for us right there. It's there. And we're like a second away from getting it, and we divert ourselves. Right? And he says, and Aaron said to them, "Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people broke off their golden earrings which were in their ears and received the gold from their hand. And he fashioned it and engraved an engraving tool and made a molded calf. Okay? Aaron, the same person that his rod turned into a serpent in front of Pharaoh. That same staff also turned the water into blood. Right? So this is a prophet, Aaron, decides, you know what? You're right. I don't know. Maybe Moses, you're right. We haven't seen him in a while. 40 days. We don't actually know what happened. Cool. I'll make you a golden calf. Right? So we consistently don't necessarily know when the good thing is coming. So we're like, let's throw an idol. But we don't have these idols. We don't actually have these idols right now. That's where I don't think any of us have made a golden calf. I hope not. And if you did, please destroy it. That's greed. So
I could
we
do
don't.
that for him.
Right? Yeah. Buddha will do it for you with his cross. Just mash it. But what are our idols? Our specific idols. What are those for us right now? The phone. But it's not necessarily a phone, right? But what do we use this device for? What do we use it for? What do we try to get from our device? Through our communication, we post something, we're trying to receive what? Attention. Right? So our idols right now are attention. Instant gratification. Right? We are consistently want to be stimulated and want somebody to say, "You're doing great. We love you. Love that picture. Love the fact that you're, cool and you're traveling and you do business and you blah, blah, blah." Right? We want that. That's what we're seeking. Right? And in that time, we can be doing anything else and what for nothing. Yeah, we're choosing that. For what? Because that's our idol right now. That's our idol. What else? What else are our idols? Candy. Somebody said candy. That's all right. We have That's a health risk. Okay. I want to define idols like normal, like real day idols. If you read, anybody hear of Rick Warren ever? Rick Warren? Okay. If you haven't heard of Rick Warren, we're going to do a comparative theology series. Probably be one of the people we talk about. But Rick Warren wrote a book called Counterfeit Gods. He's a Christian. And he says, idols are anything that absorbs your heart and imagination more than God. Anything you seek to give you what only God can give you. So we are consistently posting, texting, writing, right? Like inconsistent communication because we're filling voids. Ultimately, we're filling voids, right? We want somebody to say that I love you. We want somebody to say you're good enough. We want somebody to say no, like you're better than the rest of them. We want that. That's what we want as human beings. And honestly, in a society like today, it's probably not your fault. It is what it is, right? That's what's happening. But you have to know what's happening for you to do something about it. Okay? So an idol is something that absorbs your heart, right? Can I read this? that absorbs your heart and imagination more than God, anything you seek to give you what only God can give. So, it's funny, even as you think about this, so I want you to actually think, what is the idol in your life? But I guarantee, as you consistently think about it, especially if you're using your phone in any way, you will be bombarded with distractions to make sure you don't think about it. Right? As I'm thinking about it, as I was preparing for today, I was bombarded with anything to stop me from thinking about this. Right? What else can be your idol? What else can be your idol? Money, success, work. Anything that absorbs your heart and your imagination more than God. Some people, their family. Some people, their significant others. Right? Some people, service. Service can be your idol. Right? So that we're not, this place is not exempt from taking the priority in your life over God. Right? So if you're coming here to receive glory, if you're coming here so people can tell you, man, I really like that service you did. Or man, like your voice over there was amazing. Or man, like the way you put that together for that service was awesome. Right? It's one thing to like, hey, we're here, we need encouragement. We need to be encouraging each other to be in the service. But once that starts overshadowing Christ, and once you are trying to steal Christ's glory, that is an idol. Now, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? One, I think we really need to start holding each other accountable for really addressing these idols in our life. So whether it's calling people out because, we see in each other, because you're my brother, you're my sister, that, hey, like, we're here every single week. We're here every single week with each other. And if I can't come and tell you, listen, that thing that you're participating in outside of here is really taking your heart away from God. If I can't say that to you, something's wrong. Then this is not the church. And we're not doing this right. Right? So, one, it's accountability, but two, it's holding yourself accountable. If you can't take 10 minutes in a week to identify what's going on in your life in that week and what is taking priority, not only over God, but what is stopping you from actually having communication with Him, that's a problem. So not only does this thing steal away, I guess, God's glory and doesn't allow us to build this relationship, but it also blocks us from time to just think, to get away. Because every single time I have a moment, I put on my earbuds, and I put on music, and I drown it out. Because we can't deal with silence anymore. We can't deal with not thinking. We can't deal with not, hey, did somebody like my post? Did somebody get back to me? What happened? Like, oh, I need that. And then it's a consistent feedback loop. You partake in whatever on social media, you wait for a reaction, it's a good reaction, no, okay, let me try something else. Because I need that instant gratification. I need to fill this void. And the last thing I want to discuss is you will never, ever, ever desire God until you sit in silence. Until you really take a moment, take a step back, and you really dwell in whatever void there is. I don't care if you're crying. I don't care if you're on your knees. I don't care if it hurts really bad. You will never desire God unless you allow Him to fill that void. Right? And that requires silence. That requires isolation. That requires just you and Him. And we get a lot of those voids when somebody leaves our life. Go through a bad breakup. You lose someone. You do bad on something you thought you would succeed in. And there's a void. And there's emptiness. And you're like, man, this sucks. And what happens? Let me distract myself with anything else to get rid of how I'm feeling right now. And that's where God is supposed to be. So when we say, listen, I don't desire God. I don't need Him. We always hear this question. What if we don't desire God? Because you literally never gave it a chance. Because you never wanted to feel bad. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay. I promise it's fine. I'm not going to die from feeling bad. Right? Because you need to sit there and sit in it for a little bit and wait for Him, go to Him, cry to Him, be there with Him so He can feel it. Because if you don't take those opportunities, it's very hard to be like, I need God, I desire God. Because you have everything. People always talk about the modern world, the first world problems, all that stuff. We have a lot of first world problems. It's actually, listen, I've never done mission in Africa or Kenya or any of those places, but they say it's a lot easier to be a Christian there. Why? Because they need in everything. We don't need in anything. Right? So when you need, just wait. When you do need, like those moments, when you really need, wait. And just ask. Ask Him. But that takes time, takes isolation, it takes silence, it could take sadness, but that's okay. Because after that, then we really start building with Him. Because that's when real relationships are built. If anybody's ever been in a real relationship, that's when it's built. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
Can I get your opinion on something?
Yeah.
What do you think of people that idolize something but brings them closer to God?
Can you give me an example?
Like you said, people can idolize success, be away from God and not desire Him.
Yeah.
What about people that idolize success and that brings them closer to God? Or people that idolize a friend and that friend brings them to church a lot more?
Yeah. I think, so success, idolizing success could be tricky. I guess it really would depend on what you define as success. Is this school? Is this, career?
Think of it as like just something as simple as like a test.
Sure.
You could spend so much time studying for a test.
Yeah.
Maybe you're skipping a test back up
Yeah.
time, right?
Sure.
What you doing on the test is for, advancing your career so that you can serve God.
Yeah. Listen, that's a great question. I don't think we condone, there's a time and place, right? There's a time of time to serve, and there's a time to really work hard in your because that's a service, right? You doing well and doing well for your family and your future family and all that stuff, that in itself is a service, right? And you've seen people that do both well, right? It's one thing if you leave Christ completely and you're like, I just need to focus here, right? But having Christ with you during that time is very practical. You can do it. I've seen people that do it and do it successfully, but I also see people that say, hey, listen, I don't have any time for Christ or church, or I can't have communication because I got to study. And I know that's not true because I've seen the other side, right? And then the second thing is the people that bring you closer to God because you idolize them. My fear is, you see this a lot with marriages, right? Like people that are not close to the church come closer to the church because of the woman or the man that they want to marry, right? And a lot of time, if that is ever gone, and even when this union is complete, that zeal is lost because they actually got what they wanted, and it wasn't God.
I was actually going to use that example. I think the means can be made an idol. And I think you were touching on interdependence and dependence. So I think it is a problem when people are relying so much on a certain means, a certain way to accomplish the goal, because that's really not what God wants for us at the end. At the end, God wants us to be capable of accomplishing something in a different way. So I think from what you said today, there's a danger or a risk if we're used to doing things in a like we're comfortable with a certain way. So you did say some examples that, you know, should get us thinking, like service. You know, you always think that it's a great thing. You could never serve too much. But it could be very dangerous if that's all you're relying on, if that's all you have when it comes to a relationship with God or something like that. So I think to be a little bit more careful, we need to be a little bit more balanced and careful with how things could actually change in the future.
Yeah, and we'll get you to say something. I will also say, as Orthodox, Coptic men, typically, like, I always get worried for deacons, as I get worried for myself because we find a lot of our connection with God in action, right? It have to be doing something to have a relationship with God, right? And we forget a lot of that relationship is built when I'm silent with Him, when I'm isolated from Him, when I'm not necessarily in church, praising, right? Or, as a deacon, but that relationship is actually outside of it, right? And then I come there and that's where it's manifested, right? So I always worry about that for us, because a lot of our relationship, especially when we're young, is based off of action, and it's not necessarily based off of like communication, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Also, you just mentioned like how it manifests. I think you have to be careful because, like that friend that you idolize, maybe he will bring you to church, the physical place, but he's not going to bring you to God in your own home, in your own room, So that only carries so far, because you have to start in your own home, in your own heart, and then you could, having that manifest outwardly, that lasts. But the other way around, it doesn't last,
Yeah, I agree. Anything else? I think to Mike's point, I think, so everybody here, I believe serves in some capacity, especially serving younger youth. And I always tell them, listen, at some point, and I think that I bring this up because I think that's very clear, where if we're bringing somebody and it's not your choice about it, right, or it's about that one person, I'm coming for that person, we see it with the youth, right? At some point, it ends up being their choice whether to be a Christian or not, right? It ends up being their choice. So I think as we're serving and we're serving each other, at some point it's not about the other people, or it's really your choice. It's your choice to want a relationship with God or not, right? And if you're not making that choice wholeheartedly,